ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Louis Philippe Blanc.
So, as you can see, I've done a few expeditions. On the 20 expeditions, 7 were done in Australia. I think 5 are world first in Australia. I got the European Adventure of the Year in 2016 for an expedition in Tasmania. I'm going to come back on this one later. No, for the deserts, and I almost got it again for 2018. I got second. I did not really agree with the jury, but I'm friends with the winner, so it's good. We're good, we're all good. I carried the Olympic torch because on that same year in 2011, I got approached by the Jane Goodall Institute in Belgium, so I'm an ambassador for the Jane Goodall Institute in Belgium, and I did also some work one day at the Sydney Zoo for the Jane Goodall Institute Australia a few months ago. And I'm a life member of the Explorers Club. So for some members sometimes say, how do you become a life member? You pay 20 times your yearly dues. So do it when you're young, when you're 85. I'm not sure you're gonna last 20 years. Explorers do tend to die a little bit faster than hairdressers, I believe. This is not science, I have no idea, I never measured that. Alright, let's get on. So, 20 years ago I arrived in June, and my idea was to scuba dive, which was my first passion, and to travel around Australia, New Zealand. I went to Fiji, I went to New Caledonia, and I went also to French Polynesia, Tahiti. I took a cruise boat to the Marquesas Islands and so on. When I came back, I set up a 200 photographs exhibition at the headquarters of Decathlon. You know Decathlon, you have it. Also the sports store, you have it in Australia. And actually near my hometown, and there's actually another guy from here, François. François is from my hometown here in Australia, and he's got his own media here in French and English. So if you want to talk about media, you can talk to François later on. And after this exhibition, I encountered a French explorer called Sylvain Tesson, and he brought me to Paris to see one of his talks. And I ended in a kind of room like this in his small apartment, drinking a lot of vodka, because he was specialized in Russian expeditions, so it was all about vodka. And I was talking to people, and I felt like I was someone in Disneyland. So it was not that you were Mickey Mouse and François was, I don't know, Donald Duck or whatever. I was speaking to people, and one said, oh, I come back from Kamchatka. Another one said, I come from Mali, or I come back from South Africa, or from the desert, or I've been just caving. So everyone in the room was coming from very places that I only heard a little bit. I was not even sure where it was on the map. Anyway, I was a traveler, backpacker, and I loved it. So this is the map that's also on my website, because lots of people say, oh, you've been all around the globe. I think Chris Bay has been to way more places than me, probably some of you. So in orange are the places I have been visiting for at least 1 or 2 days. In yellow are the expeditions, and when there's a number, it's the amount of expeditions. Let me see. This one should be a 3 here now. It's hard to see. And I'm going to come back on this. So, came to Australia during this backpacker time, and then I wanted to come here with a working holiday visa. I came for a year, another 2 years later, so from 2006 to 2007. And I did my first 3 expeditions, and then the 4th where I came back in 2008. So what did I do? I crossed the Western Matons National Park in 2006. And actually I have a bond with ecology and conservation because, and I knew it after the expedition, I didn't know on the day itself because I had just started. On the very first day of my very first expedition, Steve Irwin died. If you remember Steve Irwin, so I think it's the 4th September 2006. So he had been stabbed by a ray and died of the consequences of this. Then I went to Fraser Island, called now K'gari, and then I had been to Tasmania. and then I've been to the Simpson Desert. I'm going to cover this mostly today, and especially the Simpson Desert. So this is me and Aurélien from France. We had met at a gas station, and we decided to do part of the Lara Pinta Trail. Who has been on the Lara Pinta Trail, or who heard about the Lara Pinta? A few, 3, 4, yeah. And we've done 2 stages of it, and after doing this, we found it such a beautiful country. You know, the mountains in the Outbacks, a very mountainous part of Australia, really in the middle of the Outback. We said one day we're going to come back and perhaps do the entire Lara Pinta Trail. And these are a few photos of me on the Lara Pinta, so the first Lara Pinta. I also learned when I've been walking as a backpacker in Tasmania what were leeches. We don't have those in Belgium. Well, in Belgium we have chocolate, waffles, we have the good and the fat stuff. You keep the deadly animals, please. Let's keep it that way. This is on the Wilson Promontory, south of Melbourne. If you have been there, I was sleeping in a small tent. I think on the first year I slept around 200 nights totally on the year. Seeing my first real wildlife animals that do differ from cats and dogs, like in Belgium. This is Cradle Mountain. I believe a few of you have seen it or climbed it. Actually, I think someone got a special day on Cradle Mountain a few years ago. This is the Acropolis, also in Tasmania. And this is, I can't remember if it's that day, but it's the first day I nearly died because I went down a slope of ice and my feet fell through the snow and I fell frontward and I started a bit flying in the snow down like Superman towards the cliff. I was lucky to hit a rock and get a lot of pain, but the rock stopped me from being dead in the cliff. And you know, in Tasmania or big walks, usually you get a bit of pain. You know, these are clean feet where I get a bit of pain. But why do I do it? Mostly for the beautiful landscapes, the animals that are different from Europe. Bee, wombats. This was in New Zealand. There are 2 people here over there walking. This is on, if I remember, this is actually on Stewart Island, south of Stewart Island. And this is the start of what is considered the hardest trek, trail, hike, or tramping, they say in New Zealand, of New Zealand. It's called the Dusky Track. So there was me, I am, where am I? I'm in the middle actually. There's 3 guys on one side are US Marine Corps. These are the big guys, you see they're way bigger than me. And on the other side are 3 Israeli military, young guys who did just the 2 years military that is compulsory in Israel. So super fit, super trained. And I remember preparing this trip because my idea was to do so many hikes I could do, so I could see a lot of nature, walk fast or long hours. I'm not that fast, I do actually, I'm very under, I walk very long hours. And it was said that there's a point where there are, on the Dusky Track, 3 valleys coming together with, if it's raining, a lot of water would come and the level of water will raise and the track will be in the water and you cannot walk the trail anymore. And because I'm a scuba diver and I had my scuba diving gear with me, I said to the ranger of the department of the DOC, Department of Conservation, what if I bring a wetsuit with me for hiking just in case there is some water? And they said, I have absolutely no idea if that's possible, whatever. And it actually happened. So this is how I finished walking. The Marines, they stopped one day that day for the water to go down. And the guys from Israel, I still have no clue how they did. They went up high in the mountains, but the slope was wet, slippery, 70, 80 degrees. I still don't know how they did it. But there were 3, perhaps they could have pictured I was alone. And we're coming to my first expedition. So the Lara Pinta Trail is in the West McDonald's, which is west of Alice Springs. The grey part is the Lara Pinta Trail. And I had decided to walk it unsupported. So my definition of unsupported is I don't resupply, I don't pick up people on the way that I have perhaps pre-placed before. If If someone asks me a cookie, I refuse it. I just accept smiles and talks. If I even go to, if my walking sticks are on the ground, it happened twice, someone grabbed my walking sticks and wanted to give them to me. I said, no, put my walking sticks back on the ground. I'm that mental, say I don't want any help at all. It's ridiculous just for walking sticks, but it's the principle. And while preparing this trip, I found out that Mount Zeil, which is top left, so northwest, is the highest mountain of Australia outside the Great Divided Range, so I call it the highest mountain of the outback of Australia. And like it's in the same national park, I have to climb it. And I found out that preparing to build the Larapinta Trail, the rangers wanted to go up there, but between, let's say basically where you see the pink area, the pink walk there, it's not that remote, but it's lots of rocks, so you cannot access with a four-wheel drive if someone gets in trouble. So it means if someone breaks a leg or gets any problem, you have to go with a helicopter. And it's going to be really too hard, too costly, so they stopped at Mount Sonder, that you can see on the map. So my idea was to cross the entire national park. I went west from the four-wheel drive, they drove me west, and I came back to Alice Springs. And I climbed 4 of the 5 highest mountains, because these 4 mountains are inside the park. 4 of the highest mountains of Northern Territory or the outback of Australia. And so the Larapinta Trail is 232. I added around 100 kilometers more to go to 33 kilometers, all unsupported, finding my water only in natural sources of water. But so let's say I cheated sometimes a little bit. Let's say I took some water also in the tanks. So sometimes I took from the river, the pond, but when it was too green or too hard or too dodgy to drink, I was taking from the tank that was actually a bit filtered from the part, but basically from water sources around, because the idea was to prove it could be done. This is on day 1 where I was starting a new route, climbing Mount Zeil from the west. It was the first route from the west, and I did it alone. Actually, in the logbook on the summit, that's another photo of it on the logbook. That's my feet there, just here, not at my feet, at my finger. I saw that a guy called Edmund Hillary had climbed this mountain 3 or 4 years before me. This is Mount Sonder seen from Mount Zeil. This is in the far distance, from Mount Zeil going down, you see Mount Sonder. This is the kind of water that I did not drink because it was too green. You don't drink that, you're going to be sick. And this is one of my favorite photos. There are a lot of these gum trees, and there was sunrise. There was sunset. So I'm looking out towards Mount Zeil in the distance, almost from Mount Razorback. That's a local, you all know what that is. And that is what I call good water to drink, no problem. I had these micropore pills to kill the bacteria. This is walking up one of those hills. This is the on the Larapinta Trail that I joined. This is me playing comedy, but I was really exhausted. But sometimes you end like this. I don't know if you see there's a python there. It was about a bit more than 2 meters long, but you all know what to do when there's a snake. You just wait, let it pass. Don't try to chase it or to pick it up with your hands. I know the local and the start of the Larapinta Trail in Alice Springs. So I prepared with all my stuff. Now I'm getting a bit lighter in my equipment. Also the technology is getting lighter and so on. But I had still these AA batteries back then, now we have recharged batteries. And you see my maps, actually this is a print of Google Earth back then. And you might remember Google Earth back then, when you could not really zoom, the pixels were really, really big. You had an idea, you couldn't really, not much. But all these paper maps were actually from John Chapman. If you know John Chapman, he's writing guidebooks for walking all around Australia. And before releasing the book about the Larapinta, he gave me the draft maps and said, use it and give me comments, correct the maps if so. Second expedition, the yellow line is when I crossed also unsupported Fraser Island, 9 days from south to north. The hardest part was north because in here you always use the lakes, so there's fresh water, but north there were normally lakes, but some were completely dry. So that's a few photos that I'm showing from this expedition. This is the Maheno wreck, for those who have known, who have seen it. You can land on the airstrip just on the beach with the cars. This is inland. So Fraser Island, for those who don't know, it's the largest sandbar in the world. There's a forest on it, but there's still some places where the forest is not present. And I like the different colors of the sand. And this is me when I went into the jungle, and I only had a compass and map, no GPS. So to know where I was climbing up in the trees. I was putting my legs like this around the top of the tree. I had the map in one hand, the compass in the other hand, and I tried to do some triangulation with, oh, there's a beach there, there's some water, there's a lake far distance. So I'm more or less here, and I go down and I look down. Okay, my direction is there, and this is where I go. This is one of the places I was supposed to find water, but nope. And while preparing, the rangers had told me, and I had seen actually on Google Earth, some kind of white line on the map, and said, oh, there's a road there. And they said, no, there's no road there. There was a road in the 70s, but it's been closed in the 70s. It's all gone up, the road is gone. Well, when I go there, actually, you can see a little bit up there, just there. Some part of the roads were still visible. Again here. So this was, without exactly knowing what was exploration, I was finding this old road. So this is me on top of one of these trees. And then I did a harder and longer expedition, what I call class 4 expedition. Actually, I'm building a classification of how adventurous expedition and exploration are hard from 1 to 5 levels of very hard is 5, easy is 1, easy like Everest is 2. Yes, we can debate over it, but I'm gonna submit that to the community. So I started like this with 45 kilograms, so a backpack with a massive dry bag with all the dehydrated food packs, tent, sleeping bag, and I start walking. So if you know that, so this is the green part is the World Heritage Area, Wilderness of Tasmania, and I became the first person to cross it and support it. And I had a list of 15 mountains to climb. Of these 15, I have done 14. Because I got lost at the end, well, my GPS broke and I was in the middle of nowhere, so I didn't know where I was. But as of some mountains that were very nearby I could do, so I had done 19 mountains at the end. So this is me sleeping on very dense scrub. So I'm actually not touching the ground here, I'm perhaps 30 centimeters above the ground on the plants. This is going down of King William, with Lake King William in the distance. This is when you go off track, you have sometimes to find places to not get too wet, but you will get wet in Tasmania. If you've been to Tasmania, you'll get wet. This is half weight of half the weight of the pack, you see from the side, so backpack and still the dry bag. This is a mud pool, so mud pool is when you walk, it's flat, it's completely brown, you think you can walk or it and suddenly you fall through. And this whole field of mud, very liquid mud, and when you get out, you look like this. Lucky I was not injured. Not at that time. This is when I stepped on the summit of Mount Hesperus in the Eastern Arctos, and this is the start of the Eastern Arctos with the Western Arctos at the end. One of the best hike to me you can do, definitely in Tasmania, probably in Australia. It's a very dramatic landscape, and it's challenging but possible. let's say you would be able to do it with a teenager experience that would be 16, but you would not do this track with someone that is 10 or 11 years old. And in the distance, you might see and you might know or heard about Federation Peak, which was one of the ultimate goal, because it's some people say it's the only real mountain in Australia. So my feet, that when they're clean, getting near to Federation Peak, zooming a little bit on Federation Peak. So if you summit from the side you summit with the normal route, if you follow, you die. Actually, 2 people died this year. I'm not saying that roughly, but yeah, it can happen. And this is this density of vegetation that you have to go through. So the machete, because it's World Heritage Area, is forbidden. And actually, it's sometimes useless. What you have to do is having really good gloves, like handy gloves, handyman, and you have to push the plants around where you can. You cannot push the trees, but small trees you can push them as well. It's very hard work. This is me near the end. You can see already compared to now that I'm losing some fat. And this is the last photo I could take before my camera died. And the last 16 kilometers to join the new river and the new lagoon took me 13 days. And my speed record low in the what we call horizontal slope, when the logs have been falling, basically you cannot see further than 2-3 meters because there's so many plants. That was 300 meters in 6 hours of work. And Chris saw me at the end, Chris Berry in the back saw me. He didn't take that one, but 2-3 days later I was back in Sydney, and if you want later I can show the photos that Chris took me, but I have almost no fat anymore on my body. Weight Watchers, go walk in Tasmania, it's more efficient than Weight Watchers. So actually when I had done this expedition, I knew that mentally I had something that, not that I like the pain, but I'm okay to be in this kind of, let's say, a bit dangerous and endurance expeditions. And then came what I'm mostly known for the Crazy Belgium. I was named by this for going to the Simpson Desert. So the Simpson Desert, I know there's a few Belgians in the room, I think too, is 6 times Belgium. Belgium is small, but you know, when you multiply by 6 and it's uninhabited, it becomes big. Aboriginal people left 120 years ago, so no one lives there. It's getting warmer and warmer, obviously. Few people used to cross it. Of course, Aboriginal people have been zigzagging around, going in, going out, with their wells they could cross it. But only expedition by camel or by cars have been done. A few people walked across, or with supplies, or using offshore tracks, basically vehicle tracks. But only 3 people in history have been walking unsupported without vehicles on passing, let's say, through a central part of the desert, which is Lucas Trujillo in 2006, Michael Giacometti in 2008, and I did it 2 weeks later, also in 2008. And I have the longest distance, not especially the hardest because of how the dunes are. I'll explain later. But the lengths, I did 36 days for flying distance, 600, real distance walk around 800, because I had to go back and forth with my little cart, because the cart was 215 kilograms at the start, and when you start going up the dune, the cart doesn't move in the sand and you just move in the sand with your feet. So this is the moment you know you have to remove everything and walk up the dune with the rope. Another problem are these prickles, these seeds. They can be the part that is here, the longest I've seen are about 4 centimeters. And for it drives, when you drive on it, can go flat sometimes. Perhaps not once, but there's many. And so they go fast. So my idea was to try to decrease the probability of getting fat. So I used rubber tires that were plain with microbubbles so they can get fat. Basically, you can go with a knife in there, they don't go fat because there's no air in it. So this is what I have sent to Allspins. Actually, I came with the wheels and the frame, aluminum frame, was sent to Allspins, and this is how I started. The first day and a half were on the road to the Aboriginal village called Atula Creek, and then I was off track in the dunes. This is when you have to put all your stuff down, and what I was doing with the weights after 4 days, and I did that for 4 days, I was using half of the weight during the day. I dropped it at the end of the day around 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Then what I had done in around 12, 13 hours, I went back with the empty cart during the night in 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, only to my starting point. And to be sure that I wouldn't be lazy and sleep where I had been arrived, I left my sleeping bag in my tent at the start. So sure, I was not getting lazy to not going back during the night. I met a few camels many times, and I got chased by them. Not this time, I was chasing them. Well, I was filming them, and they were not happy. This is me on top of a dune. This is for people who ask me often, "Oh, you're alone, who's taking the photos?" We're using this tripod. I like this photo because I'm on top of a hill. So that's when you get somewhere close to Lake Eyre, which is basically the largest lake of Australia, because it's a lake, it's no more the Simpson Desert. We finished, and as close as you get to Lake Eyre, the cause of the sand to change. I mean, I have 1,500 photos that will take about 4 or 5 hours to show them. Let's have a little video. Why am I here today, or this year, 2004, I arrived in July? Because I still haven't made the film of the Simpson Desert Expedition of 2008. And in 2008, drones didn't exist. So I wanted to have imagery from the sky to really show what it is. So in July I arrived, I bought a drone in Sydney, and I went back to the Simpson Desert. And actually I've been now 3 times to the Simpsons. So in 2008 with my cart, the length, north-south. In 2016, just with the backpack, no cart, I attempted the width, but I failed. I only managed to go to the part of Northern Territory, so about 280 kilometers as the crow flies. And this year I was like, well, I didn't make it with my backpack. With the cart, I can do it, and then I can resupply in Burnsville, in Queensland, turn around and do a diagonal back to Alice Springs. And because I ended the Larapinta Trail in Alice Springs, I'll say it's cool to end my number 1 expedition, my number 20, also in Alice Springs. And
a Belgian adventurer has made history by completing a world-first winter crossing of Tasmania. Louis-Philippe Lonck crossed the state north to south with only the supplies and equipment he could carry on his back. The quest took its toll. Lonck completed the journey with cuts, bruises and weighing 15 kilos less. Georgie Burgess reports from Cockle Creek.
Emerging from the Tasmanian wilderness after 52 gruelling days.
I'm happy.
Congratulations.
I'm happy. It's over.
41-year-old Belgian adventurer Louis-Philippe Lonck has completed a world-first winter crossing of Tasmania from Penguin to the south coast.
I know they're not the best Belgian chocolates.
No, it doesn't matter. I just need food.
Dubbed the Mad Belgian for his attempt, Mr. Lonck left on the 8th of August and encountered thick snow on much of his journey. The rules? He must only sleep in his tent, not use any roads and not be resupplied.
There are 2 really, really hard things on this expedition. The weight of the pack and then the fact that you cannot stop moving. Anything you stop moving, you're getting cold.
He had to carry everything he needed on his back.
You know, when I started, I was like, I don't want more than 65 kilograms because I believe this is the max I can really carry. And at the start, I was like, I have 2 headlights. Come on. 2 rolls of toilet papers. Just one. 2 boots, pair of boots. Go with 1.
The traverse included rafting Tasmania's remote lakes and rivers. There was a particularly hairy crossing of Lake Gordon on his small inflatable raft.
Come on, get out. I paddled as hard as I could enjoy the coastline, and that's where actually, with my paddle effort and the wind, I landed on the island and I was stranded for 24 hours.
Louis-Philippe Lonc's endpoint is here at Cockle Creek in Tasmania's far south. That's a journey of more than 500 kilometres over some of Australia's most remote and gruelling terrain. And he's got the scars to prove it.
Yeah, it's still open as well.
As well as cuts and bruises, Mr Lonc lost 15 kilos during the traverse, running out of food towards the end. For now, he'll enjoy some treats before thinking about his next adventure. Georgie Burgess, ABC News, Cockle Creek.
So let's go back to this year, the Simpson Desert. So the line that I wanted to do in 2016 was to go to Birdsville via the Geographical Centre and Purple Corner, which is the point linking at 3 corners of 3 states. So these are all the unsupported crossings. So Lucas did the white line number 1 in white from Eastbourne to Birdsville via the Geo Centre. Michael Giacometti went from Bedourie to Old Tandado, and I started the green line in 2008 to Lake Eyre here, and I made an attempt on the yellow line, and I finished here in 2016. I was picked up by an Aboriginal ranger, and this year, I think it's the next slide, it's a bit more complicated, but these grey zones are the Aboriginal lands, so I have always applied and always received the permit to go through. So Old Tandado Geo Centre, Purple Corner to Birdsville, via Geosurvey Hills, which is basically a hill with big rocks where there's a geosurvey point to measure basically geography. This is the line of Madigan, the guy who went with the camels, and I wanted to go via Santa Teresa, perhaps through Supine in Santa Teresa, which is the largest settlement of Aboriginal people. It's about 1,000 people live there now, and then finish Niles Springs. What I did 75 k's this way, and then I turned around and rejoined. I actually went a bit more like this, and I rejoined somewhere here. I did 210. Why did I fail this year? I'm getting old, so perhaps less training. I got the tendonitis on day 2, because going down the dunes with the cart pulling, I was always going down the dunes more on the left side, so the left side was having more pressure. And on day 6 or 7, I sprained my ankle, also on my left leg. And I was always hoping that the pain would go. The pain was stable, so it didn't improve, didn't go worse. But when you are in this, let's say, around this zone here, the helicopter from Alice Springs has not enough fuel to go in this zone, so rescue is impossible. And I was getting to mid-August, end of August, and I didn't want to enter spring, because if you go in spring in the Simpson and the helicopter cannot even come or is busy doing something else, basically you are in big trouble. So with new tools today, I could even measure the elevations, which is up there in red. So basically 11,000 meters. So imagine you have to do around 1,000 kilometers, more than the height of Mount Everest, holding a cart that my cart at start was 165. But from Birdsville, my plan was to resupply in Birdsville. And so it's sort of a double crossing. So it's one expedition with 2 parts. And the part from Birdsville to Alice Springs, I was planning to go 250 kilograms. And the whole thing happened 60 days. But this time I went only 21 days. So adding up the 21, 36, and with all the Backpackers 2016, I have spent in my life 70 days alone in the Simpson Desert. And it feels like I'm coming back every 8 years. No, I will not come back in 2032. I understood the lesson this time. I understand I'm mad, but I'm not stupid. I'm not coming back. If someone has €1 million, I'll change my mind. So this is the card. I had just to change the wheels who were yellow to black, because they don't make them anymore yellow. I use yellow because it reflects more the sun, so that perhaps the sun is destroying less fast the rubber. Also, because of the little spikes in the rubber of 2008, I had about 200 spikes per tire, multiplied by 4, that's around 800. Imagine 800 leaks if I had used air. I wouldn't have gone really, really far. And of course, when you are into Australia, you cannot come back with potential bacteria or plants in the tires. Even if they come from Australia, they stayed 16 years in Belgium. My card is still now Springs, so the idea now is to come back when ready, hopefully 3-4 years, read my first book on the Simpson Desert, and real full film. So this is the food I had, basically what we use on expedition: a lot of calories, chocolate, muesli, pasta, rice, muesli bars, nuts. This is the start at Old Andaro. And this is the zigzagging, so there's a lot of zigzagging. So to do sometimes 10 meters, you have to perhaps do 25 or 30 meters. On day 2, my harness, which was the same as 2008, started to break, so I have many zip ties to repair. It takes some time. I did not use my net this time, like in 2016. I used my net in 2008 to avoid having the fires on my face. But it's so warm, and because when there's a bit of wind, which is a little breeze, you get cooler. And you have to make the decision: do I want to stay cool and have flies walking my face from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., or do I want to be too warm? And I decided to have all these beautiful females walking on my face all day, going in the nose, in the eyes, in the ears. That's a tiny baby gecko, like I saw one night. I saw something moving, obviously it's always a snake when it's moving, but no, it's not always a snake. I still haven't seen a snake in the Simpson Desert. That's a dingo on day 1, the one that stalked me for a few hours. I tried everything: screaming, banging with my sticks, flying with my drone into his face. Oh, I said to his face, I don't want to destroy the drones, but I tried to scare him. And he is here. So sometimes I say, oh, he stopped following me, but he was just not too far. Some people is having sex in the Simpson Desert. Little tiny animals. And that's, I think, day 4. There was a cat. So you know these wild cats who are actually the best in Australia, especially in the outback. They eat all the small animals, native animals. So my feet are actually very clean, but the rest not. One of the many beautiful sunsets, and now comes a few images I took with the drone. So the dunes are all parallel. They say there's 1,100 dunes parallel from east to west. And when you go north-south, this is where it's easy. You can kind of walk in what I call the valleys. In the valleys, the ground is pretty firm, but there are more plants and it's harder. You have to do more zigzagging. And when it's bumpy, you know, it's like you could have 5 centimeters to go over, but when your cart is very heavy, it's just 5 centimeters. It's hard. I found this trail, which was a cattle trail that helped a little bit for navigation when I was doing my exit back to safety. So I'm there in the middle. There's an ancient river. You see that when the water is flowing, it goes to somewhere. Every single dune, or in between two dunes, it's a new surprise. You can have yellow flowers, white flowers, a mix, purple, everything. No flowers, just trees, flowers and trees, nothing interesting. We never know what's beyond every single dune. This is climbing the dune from the west when I was escaping. The dunes are steeper on the west and less steep on the east. And this is when it's too warm. I just try to find some shade between noon and 2 p.m. And this is starting to escape on the road, and that's on the Madigan Mine. And finally the moon arrived. Because usually I use the moon during the night because you can see everything, you don't need your headlight. It's safe, and it makes you happy to navigate when you are less under stress. That is when I arrived at Madigan Camp 1, so back on the, let's say, main road, if I can say so. And this is where I stopped the expedition, on the beach track that goes to Charlie Springs, where cowboys could pick me up, Uber cowboy. And I spent the entire night with them, and the next morning working with them, working, seeing how they work and filming. I could sleep in a road train, happy. Come on, the Belgians sleeping in a road train, who's done that? And this is one of the booklets of the scientific part I do. It's called Decision Taking Under Stress in Extreme Environment. I work with a psychologist based in Paris. This is the 4th time we collaborated, so there's little games that we have to do every 4 days or every 3 days, depending on the expedition. I'm going to do in front of you one of the little tests I do, which is recording myself saying 100 letters of the alphabet in the most random possible way. I got more points, I don't know how she's measuring, but it's good. So A, Q, Z, R, P, D, L, B, M, C, Q, L. When I'm tired, I have a video not here, but in Tasmanian winter, in the end, this is how I did these letters. A, Q, E, fuck. It was like that. It was trying just to get the letter out of my brain, and I couldn't. It means I'm very tired. Am I taking actually the right decision now? Do I need to rest? Do I need to progress? Do I need to make fire? Do I need to drink? And we're measuring this depending on the temperature, the progress. I want to find out what is the preponderant element that would get towards to stress faster. Is it the heat? Is it the cold? Is it loneliness? The lack of water, etc.? Well, there's not etc. There's 4 or 5 factors. And last year, well, 2 years ago, in 2023, another Belgian, inspired by me, tried to attempt to cross the Simpson from north to south, like I did in 2008. Unfortunately, his start broke after 5 days, so he put some water and food and his backpack went up. And we have been removing his start in October, so the Simpson Desert is virgin and clean from any Belgian property. And this is how it looks like on the Google Maps. So the little shiny thing there, it's also, oh, it looks like great. This is probably the aluminium. It is still there. Well, no, not many people know there was a car there. And this is how I plotted to get there with the 4 drives, and this is how we found it. I thought I had to go off track or hard terrain with my cart, but the 4 drives got there before me, because the idea was to put the broken cart on my cart and bring it back to the 4 drives, but we didn't have to do that. And the water in the jerry cans was still there, but it was very smelly after almost 15 months.
On behalf of the chairman, the Australian New Zealand Explorers Club, I'd just like to present you with our certificate of appreciation.
Thank you.